Okay. Good evening, all. Our speaker this evening is an author and a communications leader who works on content creation and community building for digital mobile platforms across the world. His corporate communications book is showcased at the US Library of Congress and 811 university libraries around the world, including the Harvard and Oxford University. In the early 1990s, he was part of a rock band called Rock City Crew. He has authored 25 books, created 51 websites, and directed a couple of films. His book, Glimpses of Tangasseri, was published in 1997. And today, he will be speaking to us on the 5 secrets of Tangasseri, a subject which awakens sentiments in many of us. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have the honor and privilege to present Mr. Joseph Fernandez.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. So good evening, friends. And we're about to go on a journey right now, a journey into history. And this journey is going to 5 secrets of Tangasseri. Now, before I get started, I just want to understand, can everyone hear me clearly? And can you see the screen in front of you? This beautiful view of the Tangasseri beach, the breakwater?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
Everyone, I can.
It's clear, right? Yeah, okay. And everyone can hear me clearly also, right? Okay, so let's get started. We're going to take a journey today into the history of Tangasseri. We're also going to take a journey into the history of Kerala, the history of India. So today's session is really it's about a handful of stories which I'm going to share with you, which are not very well known about this place that we are all very familiar with. We've either visited it, or we have family, or we've just heard about it in some way. But the important thing to understand, I think, out of all of this is that no matter where we are, whichever part of the world we are all connected to each other. And the story of one place is really the story of all of us. The story of a small little 99-acre settlement on the west coast of India is the story of India, right? So on that note, I'm going to get started by, I think today's format will be that essentially that we will go through this presentation. I'm going to tell you some stories. We'll take a break after a couple of slides. I'm going to get your feedback, and then we go back into the rest of the slides, and we take it forward from there. If you have any questions, please feel free to type those questions into the chat. It should be available there for you, and I'd be happy to take those questions either during the session or after it. So welcome everybody, and let's get started with the 5 secrets of Tangasseri. Now, the first thing I need to let's get started with a Google map. Can everyone see this Google map? Can everyone see this map in front of? Just say a yes. Maybe Janet, if you can just let me know.
Yeah, I can see it. The silver.
Yes,
I can see it.
Yeah, thank you. So this is the Google map. This is what Quailon looks like from Quailon or Kollam looks like from a satellite. And the area that we're going to speak is this area that you see here. So we have the Tangasseri Arch, we have the Tangasseri Lighthouse, we have this is the Infant Jesus Church. And so this area that we're looking at here is an area of 99 acres. This is an area that comprises of 3 key streets. As soon as you enter through the Tangasseri Arch, you will come across 3 streets, and across these 3 streets, you will have 99 acres of history. And this history, of course, the whole, we're looking at all of Quailon right now. All of Quailon is actually a prehistoric settlement. We have records, archaeological records of Quailon being a prehistoric settlement back a million years ago, okay, which is about 10 lakh years ago. And they have found prehistoric tools. There is evidence that people have lived here. The Archaeological Survey of India has done this research. But the real records of India, of Kerala, and Ceylon and Tangasseri start about 2,000 years ago. And what did we see? We're going to talk about the 99 acres, and there's something of interest in these 5 secrets, which you're going to hear about today. And broadly, the way that we will look at these secrets is we will look at it in terms of governance. We will look at it in terms of history. You know, what secrets do we have of history that are hidden within this 99 acres? We will look at it in terms of governance. We will look at governance means the way the place was run, the way the place was ruled, and things that we didn't know about it, even though we kind of, we belong to this part of the world. Then we will look at it in terms of spirituality, spiritual traditions, religion. We will also look at it in terms of the media, leading all the way till today, and we will look at it in terms of education. Okay, in all of this, there's going to be something for everyone. So let's get started with it. 2,000 years ago, if you look down on this map, the only thing that you would see is green. Okay, and 2000 and the few memories, the few things, records that we have had Ceylon looking like this. This was how it looked 2,000 years ago. And there were these large buildings. There was a curved coast. That's a curved coast that you see out there. And people who looked at this, who came and looked at this amazing city that was out there, it was the equivalent of a world capital like Sydney or New York or like Manhattan or any of it. There were like high-rise buildings of those days. There were ships in the yard. You would have horses. This is one of the earliest views that we would have had 2,000 years ago. And why were all these people coming here? They were coming here for a reason that exists in our backyards or actually on our kitchen tables. They were coming here for the pepper, right? So pepper was the reason that these people were coming here. Pepper was the most valuable item because that was the item that spiced food, and it grew in the backyards of Kerala. It's a creeping vine that grows around the trees, and every backyard had it. And a handful of pepper that you held, if you had a handful of pepper, you put a handful of pepper in your hands, the pepper pods. If they cost you $1 or a rupee when you were standing on the coast of India, by the time it reached Europe, it would multiply by 70 times, right? 70 times. So today, it was a kind of a debit card as well. What they used to do was the sailors that used to come here because they used to go and pluck the pepper and put it into bags and tie it around there, tie it as a like they keep gold, right? For that reason, it was called black gold. So every time they went to a certain place, when they sailed out of here and they went to other parts like the ports of Arabia or Southeast Asia, they would just take a few pods and give it out, and that was of great value. So this was the reason that people were coming here for 2,000 years. This was something of an image. This is a crescent coast, and that's the same coast that we have in Ceylon today. So this was Kerala in antiquity. And if you want me to, a lot of people who visited Kerala at that time had amazing accounts of Kerala. There's even a proverb in Malayalam that says that if you visited Kerala, you will never want to go back home to your, you will never want to return back to your home. It was that magnificent in its day. So this was, and it was the pepper capital of the world. Asia was the source of so many other spices like cinnamon, mace. Mace is from the areca tree. There were so many other spices, and this was one of the capitals of the spices in the world. 2,000 years ago, Kerala was, let's start with spirituality and religion. Here's the first little secret of Kerala, which is that if you take any belief system, any religion, and the 3 world religions have been around here for over 1,000 years at minimum. So Hinduism has been around for about 5,000 years. The Judaism for about 3,000 years, Christianity for 2,000 years, and Islam for about 1,700 years. Now, in the case of Christianity and Islam, these two religions were started almost in the lifetime of the founders themselves. So, in the time of, so we the first big secret about Tangasseri is that it is one of the earliest Christian communities in the world. Okay. So this happened 2,000 years ago. Many people in the world actually wonder about it and say, how can this be? Because they generally assume that it only came in the last 500 years or so. But the fact of the matter is, Christianity and Islam have been here for over 1,700 years, and they are two religions that have become assimilated and become part of this country, this great country that India is. And in 52 AD, the Apostle Thomas, there's something called the tradition of the Apostle Thomas. And he was the one from the Gospels that always had the doubts, and he's the one who had the opportunity. If you read the accounts of the Gospels, he's the one that actually touched the wounds of Christ, because he didn't believe that he had come back from the dead. So it was this very same person, Apostle Thomas, who is said to have come to Kerala in 52 AD, and he set up these churches out here. So if you're looking at these churches out here, these are the churches that have been set up by Saint Thomas. And if you look down here, this is the church that he set up in Quailon. Now, the question a lot of people ask now is, because it's a highly debated topic and all of that, people keep asking, where was this particular church? Because today you could go around Quailon and they'll say there is such a church, but they're not very sure where it is. So the answer to that, according to history, when St. Thomas came, he clearly used the land routes, because Quailon in those days used to be it was a world capital, and it was a place that was home to several communities. So you had the Jews. The Jews are well documented. They continue. There are still a few Jews living in Cochin today, at the Tangasseri area at Fort Cochin. They continue to live there. There were Moors. Moors were people from North Africa, essentially Egypt and Algeria. There were Syrians. So there were lots of communities living in this particular area, and that's one of the reasons that St. Thomas came down, because he was in touch with all of these people. So essentially, they were all running businesses out of these areas. They were traders, and these spices would travel up from Kerala all the way through West Asia. That would be to modern day Pakistan, Afghanistan, all the way into Iran, Iraq, Persia, and then into Turkey, and then Europe. And by the time it got to Europe, a handful of pepper that you hold here would be 70 times the value by the time you reach, Europe. Now, this is a very important fact, and this pepper aspect of it, it's definitely one of the secrets, and it's something that's very important when we look at the history of this place, and it traces itself all the way to our dining tables today. But imagine a life without pepper, right? And incidentally, at the point that all this was 1,500 years later. So the most spicy thing you could get on an Indian plate was this pepper at that point in time. That's an incredible story. But to move on further, St. Thomas came down and he set up these churches here. And he set up this church in Quailon. The question is, where was this church? Why don't we find it today? That's another fascinating story. I have to take you back out here. According to history, this church is out here. Can you see where I'm pointing to? I'm pointing to the area which is inside this breakwater. Okay, this particular area is where the Church of St. Thomas is. It is for that reason that this area was known as Fort St. Thomas. Okay. So now I want to point out that this is a pretty good example of, if you were sailing into Quailon in the old days, this is how it looked. In the Chinese records, it's known as Kulin, Kulin. the three major groups that you would have that were living there in that area. So you have to think about like this as a big expat colony. If you were living in one of the big cities and you had groups of people living in different places, you primarily had the Arabs. You had so Arabs included the Moors. Then you had the Chinese. There was a very big Chinese population out here, which played a very important role. And apart from that, you had the groups like the Syrians and the Jews and the other West Asian groups. So these were the groups that were out here, and from 2,000 years ago, the Europeans wanted a slice of this trade. They knew that this pepper that they were getting on their tables wasn't this expensive, and they were trying to figure out a way to get this pepper. So this process, and everyone believed kind of that the world was flat, that everything spun around. The broad view was the Earth was the center of the universe, all those kind of things. So nobody wanted to sail to the edge of the ocean because you would fall off. Now, this St. Thomas came down. He came via the land routes, and these manuscripts that you have here are manuscripts that exist today in Kerala. They are called the Acts of Thomas. It's written in Malayalam, and it is the old Malayalam, and it is the story of the things that he did out here. So now we move to the next area. So the key secret I wanted to share with you here is that it is one of the early Christian communities. Now, why is that so important, and why am I telling you this? The reason I'm telling you this is this happened long before Europe became Christian. Europe they had other religions, like where they had the solstice, they had the Druids. If we've been in England, and Rex De Silva, you'll agree with me, the Stonehenge, right? So we had they had the solstice, and they had the other religions. And before all that happened, Christianity came in an Eastern Orthodox form to Kerala. The other thing that happened a few centuries later, so that was 52 to 78 AD when St. Thomas came. Another interesting thing that happened is with all these Christians coming across here, the churches began to divide. About 100 years after the churches were formed, the first division of the churches happened in world history, in Christian history. So the first division was between the churches of the West, which was the Church of Rome, and the churches of the East, which was the Syrian, the Greek, and the Orthodox Church. And all their descendants today, we have those churches still in Kerala. So these churches were the ones that came down, whereas, and they had their different views. So at that point in time, the Pope in Rome sent a monk down. His name is Friar Jordanus. And Friar Jordanus came to Tangasseri. And again, when he came to Tangasseri, the reason that he came was because that fifth church of St. Thomas was there. And there, for the first time in history, which was 1329, which is the second important date, he set up the first Catholic church in Asia. Okay? So this building that you're seeing here, that I'm pointing to on the top left-hand side of the screen, that is the first Catholic church in Asia. Okay? So today it's the Bishop's Palace, right? So the Bishop of Quailon lives there, and he's got his area, which is the Quailon district. Okay, but let me tell you how big that parish was. If you think of it as a diocese or the parish, this particular parish extended it towards when he set this up. Friar Jordanus set this up, and he's written books on life in India. There's a book called Mirabilia Descripta, which is the life of the people of India. And in the book, he provides one of the earliest travelers' descriptions of life in India at that point in time. And that book was written around 1329. There are translations available, and it was one of the sources when I wrote my book called Glimpses of Tangasseri. Now, this particular, if you look at this church, this is obviously the building that was built by the Portuguese, but the reason that this church is very important is it became the first Catholic church in Asia. And what it meant was that this parish extended from Afghanistan, Afghanistan and Turkey in the east, all the way to Thailand and, Southeast Asia, the other side of, so Singapore, Malaysia, Southeast Asia, all the way there. So it was a pretty big parish, and I'm guessing a lot of parishioners at that point in time. But that was the importance of this church. And years later, I actually went to Macau, which is near Hong Kong, the island of Macau today. It's a part of China. And you have references to this church, which they spell as Coylang, Koilang, right? Which they spell. I have seen records of this particular church all the way up to China. So on the left-hand side, it was from Afghanistan. On the right-hand side was China. I'd say that's a pretty large parish to have. And this was, and of course, these are the two other churches that were built by the Portuguese. One is the Infant Jesus Church, which looks different today, and the Holy Cross Church. These two churches came up much later, after a couple of 100 years. But all of these things, the reason that the Europeans came to this particular corner of the Kerala coast is because they found a Catholic they found a Catholic community there. Okay, so this is another thing that most people do not know, that such a thing existed before everything else started. Okay, so there's one more thing that happened. Okay, so we moved from 1329 to 1498. 1498, a gentleman called Vasco da Gama is sailing from Europe. At the same time, Christopher Columbus sails from Europe. So they sail from Europe. Christopher Columbus heads off in the other direction. He discovers the Americas. He discovers America, thinks it's India, therefore he's out there. But Christopher Columbus, Vasco da Gama sails to Brazil first, and then he sails to, and then from Brazil, he picks up a whole, he sets up base there, then sails around Africa all the way, and he lands in Kerala, in northern Kerala. And what happened is, within the years between 1498 and 1520, what happened is there was a steady flow of these people coming in to buy pepper from Cochin and also from Koilang. And this broke the trade. For the first time, the Portuguese were able to get a hold of this trade and take the pepper back through around Africa. It was a very dangerous route, but it was worth it because they made a lot of money out of it. Now, along with them came St. Francis Xavier. Okay, St. Francis Xavier, right? The one his tomb was in Goa right now. So St. Francis Xavier also came in on one of these ships, and he was a Jesuit, right? And the Jesuits were very important for this part of the thing. Now we come to the next part, and something that changed all of our lives. When I say all of our lives, I mean everybody's lives in this part of the world. Along with these ships came printing presses. Okay, because at that point in time, printing presses were becoming more and more popular. They're becoming more and more powerful. They were like, in a sense, they were like today's smartphones, right? But it was a big technology. They were becoming a little more powerful, and so these printing presses came on, and they landed at a place like this place here, and they started publishing Christian literature. Now, the interesting thing that happened as a result of this, the unintended result of this, is that these books started getting published, but these printing presses also went out into regular society. And when they went out into regular society, they changed the way that we, they changed the way that society began to function. Because for the first time, knowledge was freely available to everybody. Okay, and one of the first things that happened here is that a printing press was set up for the first time in Asia, making this a birthplace that we'll see in a few slides from now, the birthplace of the media from Asia, which is another important thing that happened here, and it's definitely a secret because very few people know about it. So the media began in this place, in Asia, okay, because of these printing presses. And if I were to go to the next slide, here's a book called Doctrina Christa, okay? If you're looking at this book, this is an actual reproduction of the book that is available at the Harvard University Library. This book is called Doctrina Christa, which means the Christian doctrine. And you can see that it says here that it is it says it's in the language of the Malabar and Tamil. These are the spellings of Malabar, and this is the spelling of Tamil. And if you look below here, you can see a script that is somewhat similar to Malayalam, but it's definitely written out here in Tamil. This is the first ever book that was published. It was published in October 1527. So we're coming up to an anniversary now in 2020 when we step into this book was published. Now, what does it mean that why is this so important that this book was published? This is the first time that Indian languages were getting their own script and they were being printed on a paper. Up until then, everything was written on leaves, and these leaves would crumble and collapse, handwritten on leaves. And these leaves would crumble and collapse in a few years. But here, what was happening is, for the first time, you had the Western script, which was basically the Latin language from which English and all the other European languages take their they're based on that script. And for the first time, there was this group of people were trying to figure out how to make the Indian languages accessible to people, and they started printing this. Now, here's the interesting thing today in 2020, when we look at a place like Kerala. Kerala's among the one of the few states that says that it has a near complete literacy rate, right? Literacy, 100% literacy, they say. I'm guessing, I don't think it's 100% literacy, but I think it's pretty close to that. And the fact that you have media like this makes it possible to have such a high literacy rate. You can trace it even further to say that this state today has got the highest number of, as a percentage of population. It's a small state, but it definitely contributes a high number of IT engineers, right, to the pool of engineers that we have in the IT industry today. And none of this would have been possible without this first step happening, which was education being made available and English was nowhere in the picture at this point in time. It was essentially Latin and Portuguese, and starting to make Indian languages accessible to people. Okay, so I would say then that one of the key secrets of today's evening is for you to know that media that you see, that newspaper that you get every morning, those updates that you get on your mobile phone, all of these things, Tangasseri has played a key role in being a birthplace of that media, especially in Asia. Okay, we move now to the next aspect of Kerala's history. What we have here is early pictures of the first European forts in Kerala. Now, I was telling you about this fort called Fort Thomas, of which we have just some ruins today. But it was a very important thing in the old days. And these are the old pictures that we have of how the Quailon fort used to be, and then the shape of the fort with a church inside it. Okay, so this is a sign that this Fort Thomas was, in fact, it had a church inside it, which was built, the fort was built around the church. These are some old images of the way, it was a massive, massive structure. And today we just have one wall of it out there, but this will give you an idea of the scale of the fort. There was something else that I found very interesting, which I will share with you in a minute, but that was how it used to look before, over 500 years ago. And we had the Portuguese were part of it. The Dutch also were part of it. By the time the Europeans came, much of the fort was actually destroyed, but each of these powers, the Portuguese, the Dutch, and for the last 100 years from 1857 to 1947, the British too, did their own little changes in this particular area. So in Indian terms, this is essentially a union territory. So we could have, Goa was a union territory till 1960. Pondicherry was a union under the Portuguese. Goa was under the Portuguese till 1960. Pondicherry under the French till 1960 again. The Portuguese, the Dutch, and the British were here till between 1498 and 1947. Okay, so this was how it looked in the past, and this is what we see today. Okay, so these are some early. This is the view And this is the area of the fort as it looks today. Basically, it's just these walls that are hanging here. Now, I was wondering to myself, how could such a big fort, and how, we've seen forts and how they're so strong, and what could have happened that this fort, this whole thing just vanished. There's only a couple of walls. If you can see the whole thing, you're only seeing a couple of walls here. So why did they have to have a fort? They had to have a fort because the minute they landed and they found that when they landed here 500 years ago, they found that they were in a very valuable place and they needed to protect their interests. So they put up this fort. Now, the other thing that happened is the key fact from history is that this fort had a lot of gold in it, because the Europeans used to bring a lot of gold and store it here to transact in this area, which is the key reason that Tangasseri has the name today, because it's literally known as the place of gold, or the settlement of gold. Tangam or Tanga is the gold, right, in the Malayalam language, and Sheri is the settlement, essentially the place where you get gold. So there was a space here, and I'm going to tell you a little secret about where you will find the gold today. Also, we'll have to wait. That's probably the fifth secret. We'll come to it at the end of it. Everyone's smiling, I can see. So there is the story of the gold, and then that the gold was out here. Now, what happened is, let me just tell you that the coastline of Kerala is a very not just Kerala, but the west coast of India is a very delicate coastline, if you look at it as a whole. And the shape of the coastline has been shifting a lot. It's much, the west coast, the east coast of India, which is from Calcutta to Kanyakumari, is a much stronger coast. Whereas the west coast of India is a very delicate coast. It's delicate because if you look at the rock that is available, it's known as laterite. You see this, the building on the extreme right? The fort walls are built of laterite. It's a rock with holes in it, right? And this is a very delicate rock. It can't take too much pounding. It's not like granite or anything like that. That is one aspect of it. And the other thing is it's very susceptible to continental shifts. That means if there's a shake in the Earth's crust, it will break away. So the whole west coast of India is a very, very delicate area, because basically it was formed by the tectonic shift, and as a result of which the Western Ghats were formed. The Western Ghats run from Kerala and Tamil Nadu in the south all the way to Gujarat in the western side. And this is a very fragile area. Half of India's population gets its water from there. The water comes from Tamil Nadu and Kerala all the way up to Gujarat. We have rivers that are flowing that come from there. But it's a very fragile area. And as a result of that, and the thing that I discovered is that Kerala keeps having these tsunami type events every few 100 years. So I think most of us in 2004 when the tsunami happened, right? 2005, I'm sorry. And most of us were here. But there have been events like this in the past, and this has been recorded in history. As a result of which, things that are used to be there in Kerala's history before are not there anymore. In fact, there are submerged cities all along the coast of Kerala, up to Varkala and places like that. People have actually, who've gone diving in those areas, have actually found that there are sunken cities, right? And these things have happened, sunken churches. And in these churches, I had a friend who was an antiques dealer, and he once told me that he got a steel baptism, and it's not a steel, it's a stone baptism kind of vessel that a full-grown person could fit into, a large kind of a tub that people could fit into, that was sold for a large amount. Now that was found off the seashore near Varkala. So this is the situation. Every now and then there is a large tsunami, like a flood or something like that, and that comes and destroys the place. And that's the reason. And this area was essentially the area where, according to history, where the St. Thomas Church was. So people who ask that question, this is what I discovered when I was researching the whole thing. So that's as far as the fort goes. Okay. And then whenever you have a printing press and it's time to read, also education comes along the way. Okay. So for that reason, Tangasseri became, and it so happened that in all the missionary outposts, wherever you had these missionaries going, especially the Jesuits, learning became a priority, right? And this learning is directly connected to Kerala's status today. It is one of the key contributors. It is one of the key contributors to Kerala's near complete literacy, which is that the Jesuits who traveled on these ships brought, when they came down, they also set up schools. They set up schools. The other orders came by, so there were schools, there were orphanages, there were old age homes. There were a series of public service organizations that were set up. And again, Tangasseri, for that reason, became a pioneer in education and learning. Now, here's a very interesting thing, and I'm sure that people who have lived in Quailon and Tangasseri will agree with me. The priority for education was given to women. The priority of education was given to women. So a good 100 years before education for men started in Tangasseri, in the late 19th century, they started the Mount Carmel school. Okay, the Mount Carmel school started off with the Bishop of Quailon asking the nuns to start teaching the girls out there. Initially, they taught them things that are close to home sciences today. But this happened in the late between 1850 and 1870. And that was how the Mount Carmel school started. And if anybody wants to transform a society, you must start with the women, because the women who are daughters become mothers, they become grandmothers, and through them, a whole society gets transformed. And here in Tangasseri, this began not in the 20th century, but it began in the 19th century, which means in the 1850s, 1860s, they gave more priority to teaching the women. And this is definitely related to the fact that Kerala is a matriarchal society, right? It's a matriarchal society where the woman is the predominant person in the family. Whether it is the royal families where the lineage happens through the mother's side, whether it's the old Tharwad homes where the woman actually, the kitchen becomes the center of life, right? You go walk in there and then you find all the women seated out there, and life is sustained through the kitchen, which is very different from other parts of India, where you found that women were given a very important role in the late 19th century. It is something that has transformed the lives of women across Kerala today, across Kerala and across India. This focus on education. So the first picture is of the Mount Carmel convent. The second picture is of the alumni. And I have to say, in a personal moment, one of the people standing out there is my mother, Grace. She's an alumni of the school. She's right there in the center. And then, of course, much later, decades later, they decided to start the boys' school. And the boys' school was started in 1930. It started with two people, and one of the two people, I heard this from my dad, was my dad itself. My dad's name is Franklin. So he was one of the first people in this Infant Jesus school on that very first day. This is as another secret that I would say, which is that Kerala, in Kerala, in India, Tangasseri is a pioneer of women's education. It's also a pioneer of education in general. Okay. I just want to take a moment to ask everybody, are you finding this? How are you finding this session? You can unmute or you can send me a chat.
Very interesting, Joseph.
Thank you. Thank you.
Joseph, this is De Silva. Very interesting for me, especially because I lived in Tangasseri in 1950.
Yeah, exactly. And I look forward to your inputs, Rex, a little later, because you lived at those times, right? The glory years. So you can actually back up a lot of the things I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
For me, it's very nostalgic.
Okay. Okay. Daphne, you said that, right?
Yeah, no, that was Jayanti Thomas.
Okay. Okay, Jayanti. Thank you for.
I studied in Mount Carmel Convent for 6 years. So it brings back a lot of memories.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Joseph, this is Aldo. I spent a lot of my years in Quailon as a teenager, visiting my auntie and uncle who used to stay there,
Right, right.
and my grandmother.
Yeah,
And I remember visiting all these places, so it's nostalgia for me also.
absolutely. And I just want to say it's the same thing for me because I didn't grow up here. I used to come here for the holidays. I grew up in Madras.
I grew up in
And
Bombay.
okay.
Yeah.
So
Joseph, I just want to let you know that I started my schooling in 1943 in Mount Carmel Convent.
right, right.
And then I went to Infant Jesus School in 1950.
Yes, yes. So that was the way it was, you know, because they decided that boys too need equal rights, and they first moved, you know, they first started off at Mount Carmel, and then Infant Jesus became part of it. Okay,
Joseph,
now
this is Eva.
yes,
Joseph,
Eva.
this is Eva.
Yes,
And I
yes,
was looking forward to this session because
yes,
I was
Eva.
born in Quailon in 1950.
Right. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Happy to see so many people from Quailon catching up with their memories here. So I just want to talk now a little bit about the homes of Tangasseri, which are a memory for a lot of us here. The first home you see on the top left-hand side is my ancestral home. It's called Frankdale. It still exists, though it's not in our family. This was this one is Nerfine Villa that you see on the middle panel, and down here is the Burgess home that that still exists, right? So these homes, whenever you look at a place and then you're trying to figure out, you know, what's so special about the place, you look at the homes, look at the buildings, and you get an idea of the influences. So this, primarily, the influence that you will see here is that these are influenced primarily by Kerala architecture, but you will also have the influences, you know, you will have the West Asian influence, which is like the Jews, the Moors. You will find the influence of obviously of the Portuguese. You will have the influence of the later groups that were there as well. Now, here's a very important thing that I discovered, which is something really incredible that I didn't know, but then I discovered much later. It's known as Kerala's one-third principle. Now, if you've heard of this thing called Kerala's one-third principle, can you just raise your hands like this? Have you heard of something called Kerala's one-third principle? Okay, has anyone raised their hands? Okay. So Kerala's one-third principle is something very interesting, and it's the effect of which makes southern Kerala a very, the way it is today. So basically what it is that and I heard this, and you know, people connected with the royal family here, I discussed this with them and I found it was true. So essentially what it is that when you plan, when the ruling family of southern Kerala, right? So we had three kingdoms in Kerala. You had southern Kerala, which was in the Travancore kingdom. Then you had the Cochin dynasty, which was the middle part, and then the Calicut dynasty, the Kozhikode dynasty, which was the northern part. Now, as far as southern Kerala is concerned, and everything south of Alapi is southern Kerala, they had a very interesting principle called the one-third principle. Now, for those of you who have homes in Kerala, and you sense a balance, I'm going to ask you if you've figured out if this is true. And this is another secret that I figured that happens in Tangasseri and of course everywhere else. So basically what it is that when any town was built, the way that the rulers divided the resources is they would allot 1/3 for the forest. Okay, 1/3 for the forest, 1/3 for the water, and 1/3 for the people. Okay, so this means that 1/3 would be for green cover. They would make sure that there were trees, there was green cover, there was forest, and all of that. Then they would make sure that there was 1/3 was for a freshwater resource. That means you would find a lake, you would find a river, you would find a pond, but they would make sure that there was enough for everyone around them. And the third thing is 1/3 for the people. Okay. Now, this was actually an invisible principle of building a home, even with the masonries, for instance, the traditional masons that were out there. So typically, if you looked at the homes that were out here, you would find a lot of green cover. At least 1/3 of it would be green cover, coconut trees, bilimbi trees, all of those. You would find a lot of trees. You would find a well and a lot of importance given to that well. And a lot of the area around the well, it would either be a very large well if it was an agricultural piece of land, or it would be something close to at least 1/3 of the property, the area around it, so that water could drain into it. And after that, they would have 1/3 for the people. But now, this is a very interesting secret, Kerala's 1/3 secret. And this is the reason that when you fly into Kerala compared to the other parts of India, when you fly into other parts of India, you will find a crisscross grid kind of thing, because that's how the British started off building the cities. That's a Western model of building. But when you fly into Kerala, you will find that you will find green cover, you will find large, it's not planned. You won't find many crisscrosses, okay? Because the roads are all curvy and all of that. But you will find 1/3 for the forest, you will find 1/3 for water resources, and then you'll find 1/3 for the people. So think about this if you've grown up in Kerala. Think about this if you visited Kerala, and that's an important thing that I found in the homes also. So they make it possible in the homes, and they also make it possible in the cities around. And this is something that I discussed with somebody that was known to. I heard about it from the royal family in Trivandrum. I discussed this with somebody that was close to the royal family, and they did say yes, this was true. So 1/3, and I'm going to suggest that if you get a large plot of land, think about 1/3 for the forest, 1/3 for the water, and 1/3 for the people. Okay. Okay, now we come to the 20th century. So far, we were at the 19th century talking about girls' school being set up and all of that. I want to talk a little bit about the icons of Tangasseri. So we have this lighthouse, which was set up in 1902, which makes this, it's over 100 years old, right? And 118 years old. This is the lighthouse set up by the British. It's one of the contributions of the British to Tangasseri. Interestingly, the British didn't have much time. They had less than 100 years. From the mutiny of 1857, the East India Company was here, but the actual British Crown took charge only after the mutiny of 1857 till 1947 when they left. So one of the things that they did was to build this lighthouse, which is still open today. It's got a mercury bath where the lights are and all of that. And this lighthouse is very important because of the reason I told you earlier. The rocks, that there are rocks along the Tangasseri seashore, and there's a rock known as Sunday Rock. For those of us who are in that area, right? There's a rock known as Sunday Rock. Apparently, the rock appears only on Sunday, but that's not true. I've seen it there on other days also. But this rock, these rocks, these reefs, it's called the Tangasseri Reef, is the reason that many ships have sunk. Okay. And many ships have sunk in that area. And as a result of these ships sinking, they used to bring in gold, they used to take out pepper. There are still a couple of, when I was researching the book, I found that there are still a couple of wrecks that are in this particular area. But the problem is, to get to those shipwrecks is that because of the reefs underneath, it's very difficult to go down there. But the fishermen who go out into that area say they can see the shape of those ships, the outer form of those ships when they look down into the water. So this lighthouse was the first thing that the British did. It was ready in 1902. Many notable people of Tangasseri like Jasper Labroy were its lighthouse keepers. When I was writing the book, I was incredibly fortunate to meet all of these people. I was writing the book in 1997. That's when I wrote this book, and still people that were born in the early part of the 20th century were able to give me information about it. For instance, there was something known as this lighthouse, Jasper Labroy, who he told me about his work at this lighthouse, and there were people like Edgar Greshow and Eileen Burgess who actually told me about there was a fire apparently. I know I was listening to the story in 1997, but in 1918 there was a fire that nearly burned down the whole place, And these people were survivors of that fire. So they had stories like that that I shared in my book. So this lighthouse was the first of the things. And this was the second thing, which was the Tangasseri arch. Okay. So this arch is actually got to do with the governance of this place. When you cross this arch, it's literally like you're crossing into a union territory. And many union territories like Pondicherry and all of that have a gate through which you can go. This is the arch that's out here. Why was this arch built? This arch was built because the people of Tangasseri fought for the right to be an independent settlement within the kingdom of Travancore. And because it was during the British times, they took that fight to the House of Lords in England. Okay, and in 1935, they got the right to be an independent settlement. Of course, everything came under the British government at that point in time. But if you crossed this arch, you had a different life altogether. It was life within a union territory or a protectorate. So they fought for that right, and this arch was built as a result of it. One of the so this was the story behind the arch itself. The arch was built in 1935. My one of the people that was involved with the construction of this arch was my grandfather. His name was Joseph Fernandez, and he was one of the people that built the arch, along with a couple of other community people, to let people know that you're entering another area. So the status of this place as an independent territory actually continued till 1955, when the states in India were realigned, reorganized on linguistic basis. So the state of Kerala was born on November 1st, 1955, right? And that's the point at which Tangasseri actually officially became part of the Indian Union, being a part of the Kerala state. Of course, the Kerala state was a combination of the Travancore kingdom, the Cochin kingdom, and the Calicut kingdom. This was the story of, this was probably the story of governance, the last secret that I wanted to share with you. But I want to tell you a very important thing, that our lives would not have been the same if it wasn't for this flow of history that was in this place. This place is symbolic of it. Tangasseri is symbolic of this change that we have gone through. Equally, every other place that we live in has got its history. But I wanted to share this particular history and share my journey of being an author about, of a book that I wrote about this. And I wrote it from two perspectives. It was my late father, Frank Witt's dream to write about this, because he left as a young boy from here. And he wanted to share this history, and I think he'll be really happy up there, because I'm sharing this today with all of you. But he wanted to share this story, and this story or this collection of historic factors has had an effect on all of our lives. And today, if we today in Kerala or in India are into the mobile, we have IT as an industry. None of these things would have been possible if those first printing presses didn't come in, if those first schools weren't set up, if many of these first learning traditions weren't there. It's all because of these things today that India is an IT power, India is a political power, India is a home of learning and all of that. So through the story of one small little village, you can get the whole story of India. And on that note, I want to say thank you very much for being a very attentive audience. We come back to the place that we started from, and I'd like you, I open it out to questions.
Joseph, are you Frankfurt's son?
Yes, I'm Frankfurt's son.
Yeah, is this the Frankfurt who was a builder in Chennai?
Yeah, that's right.
Was he in the railway? He started off.
Yes,
he worked with my father.
Yes, and yeah, he was in the railways before he became a builder.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I have a very interesting story.
Yes.
My grandfather was transferred from Madras to Quailon as a railway driver.
Okay.
His name was Mr Joseph Michael.
Okay.
In fact, and they had 11 kids. And during certain epidemic, only 3 of them survived. Was my grandmother, my auntie, and my dad. My grandmother continued living in a lane called Walters Lane. It was, I don't remember the exact address because it was quite some time. Walters Lane, Patathanam West. And every day she used to take me to that lighthouse when I was a kid. So both my grandmother and auntie, and it was a fantastic experience right from the age of 12 to the age of 19. In fact, my dad is born in Koilon in 1935.
Okay. That's what's your dad's name?
Anthony George Michael. He passed away.
Anthony. Okay. Anthony George Michael.
My grandmother's name was Mabel Michael, and my auntie's name was Alice Michael. And as you said, there was a Chinese settlement.
Yes.
So my auntie had married a Chinaman named Chu.
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah. Lester, what do you think?
Joseph,
yes.
I would just like to know if your book is available.
Okay.
Could we get a copy of it?
Okay, so the story of the book is that it was printed in 1997. We did 500 copies, and then it was over. 3 years later, we had a reunion around 2000. But what I decided to do was, and I'm going to share this with everybody, is that there's a plan to bring this book out on Amazon. Okay. So that more people will have it. So this book will be out on Amazon a little later this year. But for the 34 attentive people that are out here, what I'd like to do at the end of this session is to share the first chapter of the book. Okay. So what I'm going to do is everybody that's on this, you're going to get a PDF version, which is an online version of this book. If you're not familiar with computers, you can just print it out and you can read it. But I've prepared this version, and I'm going to share this on the chat. And maybe I'll have a word with Ryan also and try to see how I can do this. The way that I will do this is to share it on the chat, and then you can download it from there. That is one way we can do it.
Joseph, I was fortunate to get your PDF copy last year, I think. Thank you so much.
Yes. Yeah, so Daphne, this is an improved version. It's got photos, and the other one was just text, right? But this one has got photos. It's got a design. I'm working on a version that can be put up on Amazon and will be accessible for everybody. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So I will share it with everybody. It's the first chapter is the history of Koilon itself as a place. Okay. And I will. Yeah.
Thanks, Joseph, for sharing all the information about Tangasseri.
Welcome, Smiler.
Much appreciated.
Thank you. Yeah, Smiler and I are family, so we always hang out together.
Joseph.
Yeah.
Having left India 35 years ago, being a Tangi boy, I've never gone to sleep one day without thinking of home.
Okay.
Now it's 11 o'clock in the night in Sydney.
Yes.
And I stayed awake to watch you talk about Tangi, because Tangi has always been in my heart. You can take the boy out of Tangi, but you cannot take me out of Tangi. So
and Joseph, that's what you missed. You didn't call it Tangi.
I call it Tangi. I call it Kolam. I ring up Tangi practically every week. So it's funny. You know what I mean? I've been here for about 35 years, but every time I flew into Kuala or into Trivandrum, Tangi was always there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Just can't wait to come home now, waiting for the COVID to get over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Joseph, correct me if I'm wrong. Frankfurt built several buildings in Chennai. One flat was called Tangi. Am I correct?
That's right. So he built an apartment called Tangi Apartments.
Yes,
it's one of
I've been there. I've been there.
Yeah. He did build that. Thinking of Tangi.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
Joseph, very informative talk, Joseph.
Yeah. Lester, is it? Who's
now? Yeah, Lester.
Okay, Lester.
I am the very few guys who still living in Kollam and also
you're
in touch with Tangi. Huh?
Absolutely, you're one of the original Tangi guys in this whole group, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hello.
I'm also. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello. Joseph.
Yes.
Very good. I'm so proud of you.
Yeah.
Your father, Frank Pett, was my senior in school. And both of them, your grandfather and your father, were leading personalities of Tangasseri in my days from 1947 to 1955. And
yes.
I'm really
That's
happy
Professor
that...
Steve Nickley.
Yes, I can see you.
You know that. And what you rightly pointed out, during our times, we enjoyed our stay in Tangasseri with dancing, singing, good Anglo-Indian food, and also good education. So all that happened because you trace the history. There was a flow in history that brought that situation for us. So that is where we are grateful. Another one aspect I want to say about Tangasseri is that it has a unique configuration, that in that 99 acres, most of the families were Anglo-Indians. So very few, 2 or 3 houses belong to other communities. For this reason, it could retain its culture for a long time. And this was a peculiar factor considering Kerala as a whole. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much. And I just want to point out that, the picture we're looking at, I just want to shout out to my brother-in-law, Troyden Scoville.
Hi, Joseph.
Yes.
I have your book with me. But I have your book with me. Hi, everybody.
Thank you.
Hi, Troyden. Hi, Troyden.
Hi, Troyden. I just want to tell a little story about the book. Actually, I read the book before I met Joseph. I was very interested in Tangasseri because the TTs told me about this place, and I landed there and married off also there. So Joseph once came to my house. He was coming to see Randa to discuss, I think, the wedding plan. And when he came, I didn't know. I just knew him as Joseph. I didn't know Fernandez, nothing. So when he came, he started talking about Tangasseri, and I was also very happy. Like, then I took a book and wrote a book on Tangasseri. He says, then finally he says, Rowena, said, I was very surprised that I finally met the author of the book after many years. This is the whole book. I still have it with me. I used to collect books on Tangasseri prior to that.
Absolutely. So Troyden is my brother-in-law, and I just want to say thank you to Troyden, because these photos that you see, many of these photos are taken by Troyden. So we collaborate. We've even taken footage of Tangasseri like 15 years ago. And 15 years ago, if you want to see it, I do have it on my system. I can show it to you. You will see some of the old buildings of Tangasseri. If we have time, I just have to ask Ryan, the administrator, if we have time. I can show you a few clips. But Troyden and I are big history buffs. He's a photographer, I'm the writer, and we go out and we find all these stories.
Guys are able to see the book. Probably it goes. He's in Bangalore. This is Joseph's book.
Yeah. So can I get feedback from other people who are on this, like Gavin or Augustine? What did all of you think about it?
Joseph, I was just about to say, so firstly, thank you very much for a very interesting talk. I've heard snippets of the information that you've said, but you've knitted it all so well together into a nice story of not just that 99 acres, how it relates to Kerala and also India.
Absolutely.
Fascinating talk. And I look forward to seeing the PDF and also the book. So thank you very much for this.
Yeah. I'd like to ask Mr. Akhtar Islam. I'd like to know your opinion, sir.
Oh, it's very interesting talk, Mr. Fernandez. But we are still waiting to hear from you where to find the Tanga.
Oh, you mean the treasure? Okay. Yeah. So I gave you some clues. If you want to find the treasure, and this part is true, because when you hear about stories that are, my father told me the story when he was young. He used to walk along these rocks along the shore. This breakwater didn't exist along that time. But what he said was because of these ships that had sunk, and sometimes he would sit with, he had a lot of friends from the fishing community, right? The old fishermen. I used to learn a lot from sitting by the side of him, listening to him talk to them about so many topics. But essentially what he said was that when you walk along the seashore, all these rocks are there. they would find in the old days they would find cannonballs, right? Because of the battles that had gone on, they would cannonballs among the rocks. And what he said was that, you know, in the stretches where most of it is rock, but sometimes you find beach. And he said on full moon nights, and here's the big secret. Yeah, so on full moon nights, what happens is the tide washes gold coins onto the shore. Okay, the tide would wash gold coins onto the shore. So there were specific times of the year when the tide was high, and as a result of the sunken wrecks that were there, they would wash these gold coins out on the shore. And so for the lucky people, there was always a treasure to be discovered. And that is the fifth secret I need to share with all of
you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I hope I answered everyone's questions.
Yeah, but I still have to find the gold.
Okay, Joseph, thanks for a very interesting talk. You've enlightened us a lot of the treasures of Tangasseri. I always knew there were treasures there, but you've enlightened us a lot, and especially of the tradition of building of 1/3 forest, 1/3 land, and 1/3 people. That's something very, very interesting. Thank you very much for that. Thanks for your talk.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I'll find a way to share it with all of you. If you can just hold on for a minute, I'll see if I can share the PDF on this chat. Otherwise, Janet, do we have everyone's email addresses or numbers?
Yeah, I have most of their numbers. I can get you most of their numbers.
Okay, okay.
Except for Mr. Dennis DeCosta.
Okay.
I don't know who's Dennis.
Okay, so I'm just looking at the feedback. People have asked about. Yeah, so let me just, yeah.
What you could do is just share your number with us so that anyone who would like to get in touch with you could possibly do that, just in case.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that would be good.
Joseph, quick question. Do they have an Anglo-Indian community, a large Anglo-Indian community in Trivandrum?
You're talking to them.
All right. So, okay. Hello to everybody in Trivandrum. Okay. Yes.
You're talking
practically
everybody.
So everybody is from Trivandrum.
This is Smiler. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Smiler. Yeah. Okay.
I'm Aubrey. Yes, Smiler. They call me Smiler. Yeah. Okay. So you're.
Yeah. So just to answer the question, my phone number is 98413. Sorry. 98473 41200. If you send me a WhatsApp message, I will send you the chapter of that book. 98473 41200. I'm going to try and put this on the chat if I can get to it. Just a minute.
Smiler, just for your information, that this session has been hosted by the All India Anglo-Indian Association Trivandrum branch, which is headed by Janet, who is the president of the association in Trivandrum and is doing a lot in bringing the community together and bringing back the old thoughts back.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, because I thought
we have around 40 families, maybe 70 of us. Very close-knit community out here. We know each other and, you know.
Okay. I had a friend of mine, I think Bowden Moreira is married to a girl from Trivandrum. Yeah, I don't know if there are any Moreiras, but anyway. Yeah, very good. I thought you had a few people from Madras on this call too. Oh, that's interesting. Good.
Okay, so everybody has to everybody on this call on the chat, I've sent you my number. Please send me I've sent you my number on the chat. So send me a WhatsApp message and I will be happy to send you a copy, the first chapter of the book. So it's +91 98473 41200.
Finished, is it?
So thank you. Did you get it? It's on the chat of this this call, this Zoom call. So to everybody who said who gave your feedback on the chat, Sharon, Carol, Mr. Yeah, so Mr. Akhtar Islam, Lester, Christine, Evan, right?
No, that's not Evan. That's my grandson's accidentally put his name there. I'm Aldo,
Okay.
A-L-D-O.
Aldo, yeah, Aldo. And Rex De Silva, Robin Mendez, Augustin Pereira, Gavin, Maya.
Wilson.
Thank you all for your feedback. It was absolutely incredible. I love history, and it was an absolutely incredible session with all of you, having such an audience. And thank you for your sharings as well. Okay. I will respond to you as soon as you send me your WhatsApp messages, and thank you all for being an awesome audience.
Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Good night.
Look, could I request?
Thank you for the organizers also.
Sure, Joseph.
Yeah. So a big thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Yeah. Ryan, thank you so much. The Anglo-Indian Association, Janet, Maya, all of you, thank you so much for your contribution. Jessel, who called me.
Thank a governing body member also there.
Yeah.
Also coming. Okay. My cousin sister, Yavrin.
Okay, thank you, everybody. A big thank you to the Anglo-Indian Association, everybody in it as well.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez, and thank you, Janet. Mr. Fernandez, I've sent you my phone number and email on your WhatsApp chat.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you. Bye, Lester.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah.
So
thank you, Troyden.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night, all.
Night.
Bye.
Good night.
Request everyone to join us for next Saturday. We're having a DJ evening with Koilon's legendary music star Ronnie also joining in. So those of you who are free, can please join us next Saturday at 7, from 7 to 9. And the link will be sent to each and everyone. So please do join us and make that evening. I think Janet is making the announcement. I think Janet, you have to unmute yourself, Janet.
What was thanks is giving?
Thank you, Jessel. Yeah. Thank you, Jessel. I just want to say thank you.
Joseph.
Okay.
Jessel, you have to unmute yourself if you're going to talk.
Jessel.
John will now propose the vote of thanks.
Yeah, good evening, friends. This year has definitely been a topsy-turvy ride for all of us because of the pandemic. Nevertheless, Zoom has given us an opportunity to meet and interact during these trying times. A big thank you to Mr. Joseph Fernandez for detailing to us the 5 secrets of Tangasseri. For the Koilon folks, it was definitely a reminiscing moment, and for the others, knowledge afresh. Thanks are due to Ryan for successfully managing and moderating the meeting. Sincere thanks to the committee for starting this initiative and converting the unfamiliar into the familiar. My wholehearted appreciation to all the participants for taking their precious time on a Sunday evening to attend this informative lecture. Thank you one and all. God bless. Cheers.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Unmute. Janet, unmute.
I'm not too sure if Carol is still with us. Carol Kirk joined us from Vizag. Thank you, Carol, if you're still here. Thank you, Mr. Gavin Wilson, for joining us from Mysore. I guess Rochelle has left, right? Rochelle and Ravina have left. Yeah. Thank you all once again. Hi, Ravina. Hi. Thank you for joining us, Ravina and Croydon from Chennai. Rochelle, thank you for joining us from Bangalore. Thank you, Mr. for joining us from Bangalore. I guess Smiler's already left. He joined us from Australia. He's Mr. Aubrey Fernandez. Thank you once again, branch committee. Thank you, my secretary, Jessel Rodriguez. John, thank you for the vote of thanks. And last but not the least, thank you all for joining us. And Mr. Joseph Fernandez, thank you. It was an awesome evening. I have been loitering down the streets of Tangasseri during my summer holidays vacation. And I really didn't realize that the Bishop's Palace was the first church in the whole of Asia. Thank you. A lot of information we received today. So can we wrap it up? Joseph? Okay then. Where's Joseph?
Left.
Joseph's left, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay then. Thank you, Auntie Daphne.
Thank you, Janet. Very interesting evenings. Bye.
Yeah.
Janet.
Again, we'll have to meet on the 3rd, Auntie, 3rd of October. Yes.
Janet.
Yes, Jude.
Yeah, my cousin from Baroda has joined us. Her name is Diavelin.
Yeah.
My cousin from Baroda.
Javelin, thank you. Okay.
Javelin,
thank you for joining us from Baroda.
There was also one from Hyderabad, Dennis DeCosta. He's also a cousin of mine.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Dennis DeCosta, for joining us from
There's one Fabian
Hyderabad.
Fernandez who has joined us from Qatar. My nephew.
Okay.
Fabian Fernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Fabian Fernandez, for joining us from Qatar. Yeah. I guess Joseph left to speak with his family. Okay, then tata.
Bye.
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 See you next week.
Yeah, see you on the 3rd.
Yeah.